Good Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock, time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend is off to a good start. Browns getting ready for the Tennessee Titans, 1 o'clock Sunday, Cleveland Browns Stadium. So another home game. Some news out of Berea today that is not great. Greg Newsome is out. He's been ruled out with that elbow injury. Also, James Hudson listed as questionable for the game. Kevin Stefanski earlier today talked about how the Browns will replace Greg Newsome being out of their defense.
Obviously, guys have to step up, and Greg plays a big role for us inside and outside, so we've worked through that all week, Mary Kay, so I feel comfortable with the plan.
Okay. With Greg, do you think it's going to be a long time?
I don't. Yeah, rule him out for this one, then we'll see for next week.
And then what have you seen out of Cam Mitchell that if he has to fill
What a shock he's asking this question.
Yeah.
Northwestern Wildcats stick together. Yeah, he's done a nice job. Very smart kid, tough. Has done a nice job on special teams. Every time we put him there on defense, has done a admirable job and knows what to do. Is physical. So he's a candidate to be in there at times. We have a bunch of different guys that can play in there.
With that, let's welcome in Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Brad, I would expect you see some three safety looks just based on who you're facing. You might even see, another undersized linebacker because if you want to try to beat me with the wide receiving core of the Titans, I will thank you and say, great, don't run Derrick Henry down my throat.
Yeah, exactly. The good thing is, I agree with you on the three safeties. I think that's probably their first answer. You may see some Cam Mitchell at times and stuff, but the good thing is the Titans, 23rd in the league in 11 personnel, which kind of lends itself to not needing that nickel corner as much, and they're 30th in the league in success rate out of 11 personnel. So you don't expect to see a ton of the three wide receiver looks that require to have that corner on the field all the time. So they should be able to adjust to this. As you said, they probably would be heavier personnel wise anyways because of the running attack.
All right. Plenty of voicemails to get to today. So let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Do you think Stefanski plays to Watson's strengths, or does he have Watson play to Stefanski's strengths? Because the playoff year, when we won the playoff game in Pittsburgh, when Stefanski had COVID and AVP called the plays, he had the pulse of the offense, and you've seen what we did at the Steelers on offense. We dominated that game on offense. Our defense held up and won. I just think when you're the head coach and you're worried about every little thing in every part of the team, you can't dedicate your whole time to getting the pulse of the offense of your quarterback. So I just think that maybe they should let AVP call some plays and see how that goes. Let him call a game just on offense. Let Stefanski just worry about the game and let AVP worry about the offense. I just think maybe we got to give him a chance to let him do what he was hired for. Just my opinion. What do you guys think? Go Browns. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Brad, we've gone back and forth on this. I don't have a problem with his play calling, but let's take a different angle of this. This offense, to me, looks a lot like the offense last year. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100% agree. In week one, it made a lot of sense, Dave, right? Like the pivot to or reverting to the heavier personnel and the run game made sense in the weather. It gave you an advantage over Cincinnati and allowed you to win that game easily. And then, this week we expected to see the shotgun, the RPO, the Watson, Houston-esque version that we have heard about, right? Elijah Moore being used creatively and whatnot. Not seeing a lot of that, right? And I don't know. The caller asked a good question, right? Is it Stefanski or is it Watson? I think it's a little of both. In my opinion, I think Stefanski is watching Watson and saying to himself, he's not ready to just sit back in the shotgun and carve up defenses yet. And it's hard to argue with that. Now, is the approach of reverting your offense back to what it was before, especially now without Nick Chubb, the answer? Or should you lean into what Watson is more comfortable with? That's kind of the question. And it'll be interesting to see what we see on Sunday. I think they should probably lean into what Watson is more comfortable with or what they have prepared for this season for him now that Chubb is out, especially against the stout run defense they're going to face on Sunday. But I understand to a certain extent the trust factor here, right? Like Stefanski is watching and saying, I don't know if I can go that way because I'm not, for whatever reason, Deshaun is struggling a little bit, right? So, and that I think is causing him to pull back on the offense.
So Deshaun Watson was asked about that, his struggles in the passing game and also the lack of playing time in the preseason for Watson.
It's just getting comfortable with this system. It's a totally different system. Just finding ways to, get back on track when things are not going our way. Learning Kevin, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to run the ball. We're going to be a quick game. Are we going to get it empty? Are we going to do a little bit, zone read, keepers? What are we going to do to get back on track and things like that? So, just being able to do that. The other night, the first play was, tip ball and pick six, and then I think the next 5 plays were completions, and then it just kind of trickled there, and then it was like a little lull in the middle of the game where we kind of went, I think, 6 straight or something like that with incompletions. They did a good job on defense of covering the spots, and then we picked back up those completions. So, it's part of the game, and you just pick up the pieces and you watch the tape and see which ways where you can keep getting those completions, but that's pretty much it. I can sit here and say that it's a lot, but I'm not going to sit up here and tell you guys that's the reason why. It's just, part of the game and how the game flows. So I'm not going to use preseason as an excuse to sit up here and say that, we got to continue to find our rhythm and things like that. I'm not going to make no excuses for myself or anybody. We got to, make sure we start fast and play better.
Brett, I guess the question becomes why? What is the reason for the struggles?
I guess my thinking is that the game hasn't really slowed down for him again, Dave. Like, it appears that for whatever reason he is having an issue trusting his eyes or processing what he's seeing down the field. Because in the game, when he's not getting pressure, and that's not helping, right? Like, the offensive line not being able to protect well is not helping, certainly. But when he does have time and he does get to the top of his drop, the ball's not coming out on time. It's hesitant, right? And then you go to, the people that evaluate the All-22 this week, there were guys open, right? Like, it's very reminiscent, eerily, of Baker Mayfield, right? A couple years ago, like, why won't he throw it from the top of his drop when there's an open receiver? It's trusting your eyes. It's getting back into this. And I think, how rookies talk about how the moment the game slows down for them and it starts to click, and it just appears to me that maybe that moment after 700 days off hasn't happened yet, and it's taking a lot longer than we initially expected it to.
So what do you do in the interim? How do you get him into a rhythm where you can have an effective offense?
It's a great question, right? They're getting paid a lot of money to try to answer that question this week. So that is the question. So I think that I would try to get him easy stuff early. I know they attempted that last week to great failure, right? Now, why you run that with your tight end 3 and how you're not on the same page when that's been the play for 3 days is beyond me. But I won't go back to that game that I'm sure you've been through that all week. I think you've got to get him some easy stuff. There's surely a confidence factor here, right? Like, I think that's one of the equations that is affecting him is his confidence, is trusting what he sees and trusting his arm and all those things. And so I think if you can try to scheme up some easy underneath stuff that gets him in a rhythm, then maybe you start to see tangible progress. I mean, that's all. I don't expect him to do it. Sometimes it feels like he's trying to get it all back in one throw, right? like all of it back, like everything back in one throw. And that's a lot of pressure to try to operate under. So piece by piece, easy throws, easy completions, get him in a rhythm. Listen, this defense is very good against the run. They're going to make him beat you this week. So you better have a plan to do it. I hope Stefanski has it figured out. I guess, what version of the offense do we see this week? No Nick Chubb. You've had a short week to prepare. That's kind of the ultimate question. I'll be very interested to see if we see the shotgun heavy stuff that we expected to see, or if we're still seeing 13 personnel and him turning his back to the defense, play action stuff that we've seen for years.
All right, Myles Garrett today asked about the importance of containing the run game against the Titans and what he has seen from Derrick Henry.
He looked like me, but like 1 inch shorter and like 15 pounds lighter. So, I mean, the guy is physically impressive. He's a hell of a football player. He's been doing it at a very high level for a while now. And you gotta come with a head full of steam and take those legs up. Got to go for the ball. Got to make sure he doesn't get those 5 steps into the ground and keep him off track. Once he's going downhill, he gets to that second level. He's very hard to stop. That's been that case for all of his career.
Is stopping Henry like proof that you guys have really transformed that run defense?
Only as good as your last game. So we'll see after the game what the numbers are, but can't say that our run defense is so much better until we face this guy and we do well, and then we got to face the next guy. You can't be worried about what last game's numbers say. It's all about who you are when the lights turn on, because any given Sunday, things can change.
And again, that defense it's got the right mindset. You like what you're hearing from top to bottom with it.
Yeah, they've been elite so far. You have a lot of confidence in them, and Myles, it's just cracking up at Myles with his shirt off at the presser, just like it's just crazy. He's a freak of nature, but he. They've been excellent against the run, and they got safeties flying around because the guys up front are disrupting, right? And it's working so far. I will say, in some of the work and conversations I've had with guys on the Titans beat this week, I wouldn't be surprised if you see some Tajay Spears sprinkled in there. He is an excellent little back, a change of pace. So, and he's been actually more effective in the little touches that he has than Derrick Henry. Not saying he's certainly the centerpiece of their offense and they're going to lean on him big time, but I think Spears is a weapon that they want to, trickle more into the game plan. So, and he's quick and he's a weapon. So that change of pace is something they certainly need to be ready for in the run game as well.
Yeah, and he has been effective without question. So I would not be surprised at all if you see a little bit more of Tajay Spears. Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report. All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report and the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I think really to calm Watson down, just to get some of the pressure off of him, is to give him short passes, give him screens, give him quick things, give him the things that we first gave him. I understand that we're trying to utilize, his arm strength at the same time. It's not working. So we're going to have to utilize the short intermediate routes until he's ready to throw the deep balls and utilize the vertical routes and everything else like that. But We just need to get his confidence back. I think that's the big thing that's really killing him. It's just the confidence. Get everybody involved. Don't make it 1 or 2, 3 players. So continue to spread the wealth, but do it in a way where it can restore his confidence.
The other thing that I've noticed, Brad, they're not utilizing the middle of the field, which he did very effectively with Houston.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you think about his completions in the Steelers game, right? Like, they were mostly to Amari Cooper, and he was mostly really wide open except for the back shoulder throws, which are kind of a low-risk throw, right? He's having trouble, I guess, in my estimation, he was having some trouble anticipating, right? His anticipatory throws aren't really there. It's kind of like he has to see it open to throw it, right? He's not throwing anybody open. You're not seeing him squeeze it into tight windows. That shows kind of either he's not trusting his eyes, or he's lacking confidence, as the caller said. So I think you do get him some screens, and you try to get him some bubble screens, and you run some of the RPO stuff, which is quick, easy decisions that he can get the ball out quickly to and can be effective against a defense like this. To build in the right direction. And it's like there's such a give and take here. There's so many layers to this, Dave. It's hard to really understand what Stefanski's plan is and what Watson really wants, because you hear sound bites in the offseason like, oh, they gave me the keys to the offense. Well, and then now we're seeing this, and then so it's quite the enigma right now. And I'll be really anxious to see what Stefanski wants to do against this Titans defense, because they will be ready. Mike Vrabel, in my opinion, is one of the best coaches in the NFL, and he'll have them 100% ready to compete. This is critical to taking a step forward for Watson, right? And they need to find a way to get him some easy ones, like the caller said. You said the middle of the field, absolutely right. Maybe Njoku seems wildly underutilized so far, Dave. So that would be a weapon I would be looking to.
Former NFL running back LaShawn McCoy on FS1's Speak talks about what he's seen from Watson through the first 2 weeks.
How should the Browns feel about Deshaun Watson right now?
They need a refund.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's just that simple. We need a refund. Thanks for everything you did. Let me get some of that back. My thing is with Deshaun Watson is we thought that we would get the old Deshaun Watson back. We gave some grace period because he hasn't played football in some time, and he had like a full camp and all them type of things. Well, this year he did. Full camp with players, new players, old players, everything he needed he has. If you look at that Browns team, on defense, they lights out. Yeah. They get after the pass. They can stop the run, then they get after the pass. They get after the quarterback. So you look at the offense. They can run the ball extremely well, and then they do have a number 1 wide receiver in Amari Cooper. What's the problem? The reason why the Browns went out there and gave him a $230 million contract, guaranteed, boom, is because they thought that he can play. We thought that he could play. Yeah. We thought that he was the only step to taking this team not only to the playoffs, but to the AFC Championship game, to Super Bowl. And he hasn't delivered. I mean, and I was thinking now that Nick Chubb is hurt, you would expect your $230 million quarterback to still carry the load. And we all can say honestly and confidently that we don't think that's possible.
Ew.
I think they should be extremely frustrated. Everything Shady just said. You had a full off season. You had time to learn the offense, to learn your teammates, to get comfortable within the system. The excuses are off the table.
Brad, I think it still comes back to, are they running the offense that they envisioned, or did it get tweaked because you had Nick Chubb? And thing is, you don't have Nick Chubb anymore. Jerome Ford's fine. Kareem Hunt's fine. They're probably better than average NFL running backs, but they're not Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
And you can't operate like they are Nick Chubb.
You can't. And so to that, your point, I kind of hope they do lean into what we envisioned or what we heard this offense was going to be, because I think at this point you're going to live and die with that. Like it in a smaller scale, this Sunday is exactly that because of the run defense, right? Like they are going to make him beat you. And so the Browns have to find answers for that. and Deshaun is going to have to sort it out. Now, the whole thing with their conversation, Shady McCoy's conversation, and on that, listen, there's no exact science to how long this takes, right? Like, and the Browns aren't giving up on Deshaun Watson anytime soon. They don't have an option, Dave. They don't have an option. So, like, they have to continue to try to figure this out week in, week out. So saying it's not possible, I think, is a little harsh. I think that could it take longer than we initially expected? Certainly. I think, like, mentally where he's at right now, there's some questions, kind of like, where is he in with the off the field stuff, right? Like, how is he handling being the villain for the first time in his life? All of these things seem to maybe be weighing on him and pressing him a little bit. So adjusting to that, adjusting to the offense, all of this stuff layered together is kind of a mountain that they're going to have to figure out how to climb. And there's going to be peaks and valleys along the way.
Well, Mike Vrabel, you mentioned him, Titans head coach, is familiar with Watson. They played each other a couple of times a year when he was the head coach of the Titans and Watson was with the Texans. Vrabel on if Watson's style is different than it was in Houston.
I don't think his style has changed. It extends plays. He's got strength and great play strength in the pocket to wait out receivers, to get them through to the second window. Extends plays. He's got length and stiff arm, and will scramble and can run to get what he needs to get to. Can throw the ball to all parts of the field.
And the problem is he hasn't put it together yet. The stiff arms, you saw two, and the penalties weren't. It's not. I'm sure you've heard the same thing. It's not that it's a lack of discipline. He's a bigger guy, so when he goes to stiff arm, his hand gets caught in the face mask.
Yeah. A little frustration maybe on the one where he kind of threw the guy to the sideline, but like he visibly is just, it's not clicking, right? And so everything Mike Vrabel says is correct. His style is still the same. Are the Browns, I guess the ultimate question that we keep coming back to is Kevin Stefanski and are the Browns giving him the best opportunity to succeed by running what they're running? And now that Nick Chubb is gone and you can't rely on that as your warm safety blanket in the offense, do you fully lean into what is supposed to be the Houston-esque Deshaun-friendly offense? And can he operate it, I guess, right? Like, I think that's the ultimate question. Is he still elusive in the pocket? Yes. Is he still going to make great throws? Yes. Can he still make all the things that Vrabel just said? Yes. He's still the same guy. He's just having trouble, I think. Like I said, it's not slowed down for him. He's not trusting his eyes. He's not processing the field the same way he did a few years into his career in Houston. And they have to find a way to get that to click for him. And there's no exact science on that, which is kind of why we all are talking about this, right? Like, what is the answer? Kevin Stefanski's job is on the line. He's got to try to figure it out. There's a lot of pressure on Watson, Stefanski, and this offense as a whole.
All right, Mike Vrabel and Ryan Tannehill, who played at Texas A&M, where Myles Garrett is from, talked about Myles Garrett and facing him on Sunday.
I don't think there's too many guys walking the earth like Myles Garrett, so we'll be in for a huge challenge.
I don't know him well. I think I've met him once or twice just after playing against him, but just a special player. You see a guy who's got the size and strength, but then he also has the speed, so he's a extremely talented player that I have a ton of respect for. He's disruptive. He has every kind of rush in the book, You see him bending the corner and getting low like some speed guys do, and then you also see him, pushing the tackle back like power guys do. So really a tough guy to block, especially consistently, and a ton of respect for him.
Means Myles is going to be in for another long day where he's going to get chipped and double teamed a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And I love the way that Schwartz has been moving him around, using him over the center has been very effective, right? Starting when the Bengals game with his basketball crossover. And then to last week, he was doing it as well. But just the surrounding cast has kind of totally changed everything. Like, he played an incredible game last week, didn't get a sack or anything, but was disruptive throughout the entire game. So this defensive front is so much fun to watch, especially with the guys on the back end that can clean it up for them. I just have a lot of trust in this defense. And that's another layer to like the Browns' success, right? Like, they're talking about Miles, but really they have to worry about Za'Darius. They have to worry about Schwartz, who is blitzing guys from different areas, and at times even dropping Miles into coverage a few times we've seen, right? So getting very creative with where he's bringing blitzes from, confusing quarterbacks. He's been successful at that so far through 2 weeks, and this defense looks elite. So back to Kevin Stefanski real quickly. How do you coach this team when you know you have an elite defense? That's a new thing for him, right? Like, I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit later, but like, how do you manage the game just trying to get a win when you know you have a defense that can turn people over and stop people? Maybe that's some of the reverting to the old offense too, right? There's a lot of factors at play here.
Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report. All eyes on Cleveland podcast. Now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason and a little more on the Titans. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE with Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report. All eyes on Cleveland podcast. A defensive lineman, Jeffrey Simmons of the Titans, really good one, talked about the Browns' run game on offense without Nick Chubb.
Their offensive linemen do a good job, on their double teams or whatever it may be. So I don't think don't really matter who back there. They trust their offensive linemen. But at the end of the day, it's about how we're going to be able to hold up against their offensive linemen, against the run game. We're going to have to be more physical than them up front, and that's where it's going to start at. But other than that, I think, like I said, I don't think nothing really much is going to change up front, especially in the run game, because everyone on the offensive lineman healthy. So
first real dangerous running quarterback for you guys. How did things change in terms of you guys have talked in years past about kind of corralling a guy?
I wouldn't just say he's so dangerous running the ball. He give us a lot of opportunity. When it comes down to it, we have to make sure our rush lanes good. We got to make sure that we coordinate. But at the end of the day, it's on film and everyone says that he gives us the opportunity to get the ball. When he running with the ball, when he trying to escape the pocket, the ball is out from his body, trying to do the stiff arm or whatever it may be. And we sit it on film and we getting coached that. So when we affecting him and trying to affect him, we have to be able to go for the ball. That's one thing we talk about here, trying to create them turnovers. And I don't think nobody on the field fumble the ball more than the quarterback. So, it's a great week. If we could force him out the pocket or whatever it may be, we could force him to make some bad decisions with the ball. That's our goal.
Brad, when you listen to that, it's a copycat league. That when you turn the ball over, teams are going to start trying to take it away, and that's exactly what Jeffrey Simmons said right there.
Yeah, it can't happen this week, right? Like, there's no way. You can't turn it over this week. You have no chance against this team. They're gonna and they're gonna be looking for it, just like Jeffrey Simmons said there. This defense is good up front, right? Like, and he is a menace himself, and Watson has been that way with the ball, right? Like, he exactly as he described is what we have watched, and he's put it on the ground a few times in crucial spots. Well, I don't really blame him for that last one, but on the blind side. But Yeah, they have to protect it. They have to play a clean game. And I know it sounds so obvious, but 2 turnovers week 1, 4 last week. It's got to be better. You can't have a trend of turning the ball over like that and expect to win games. You just don't have that kind of margin for error, Dave.
Well, and statistically, the Titans give up a bunch of yards passing, but I guess it's a catch-22. Is that because their run defense is so good? And the other question becomes, what does Watson need to do to beat him?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was asked about that this week in some of my conversations with the people covering the Titans, and they're like, listen, the yardage looks really bad. I think they're last in the league maybe in pass defense and first in the run or something around there. But it is somewhat correlated, like you said, right? Like if you're deterring a team from running the ball, naturally, or shutting down a team from running the ball, naturally they're going to throw it on you more. And if they find some success, they're going to continue to do so. The people that cover the Titans think they have a good secondary, and they have Kevin Byard on the back end, who is a stud. But they like Roger McCreary and they like Amani Hooker back there. So they actually like their secondary despite the yardage. So to your point, yeah, it is a little bit of a catch-22. But we have seen, I mean, the Saints beat this team, right, by a point. And they haven't put up a ton of points. So if the Browns can just put together a few drives and lean on their defense, you want to think the defense can win you some games while the offense figures this out, right? And I think that's kind of the formula, because I don't think it's just going to happen overnight, Dave, the offense just getting it, right? So to your question of how do you attack them, I think they're going to try with the run, no question, right? Like the Browns offensive line is good enough to battle any front, right, in the run. Not so much in pass protection these days, but in the run game for sure. But I do think that, like I said, they're going to make Watson try to have to beat him, right? Like I think they will be stout and slow the run to the point that you're going to have to lean on him to beat you. So, center of the field, like you said, they will be in zone sometimes. Amari Cooper sitting down in those zones was successful last week. Whatever Watson is comfortable with, lean into it. That's your best chance.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason again.
I wanted to call into the show and bring up a concern with Deshaun Watson's arm strength. Everybody keeps saying that he's got this cannon for an arm. He does not. If you look up what velocity he threw at the combine, it was 49 miles an hour. There's a big difference in the air in Houston and that stadium that has, I think, a retractable roof, the air coming off the lake in Cleveland. So a lot of these plays that Goodwin's getting behind the defense and Watson's hoisting it up like he did in Houston, he's not completing those passes like he did to Brandon Cooks. I think because the ball's hanging up in the air and it's hard telling which way it's drifting or whatever. He's not used to that. They need to go with more of these timing plays and say, hey, take little bites, and then go for a mid-range pass and try to get him in a groove. He's always looking to go deep, and I don't think he has an arm to cut through the air to do it. So just my thought. Y'all take care. God bless.
Appreciate all the voicemails. Brad, I do remember the miles per hour. All I can tell you is I've seen the ball come out of his hand. He's got a strong arm. Now, the timing with Goodwin, that'll come. But there's truth to what he says about, I remember that knock on him coming out of the draft, and I remember seeing him on the field going, if this is 49 miles an hour, I'm missing something.
He did not test well when his arm strength. I remember that as well. But listen, I don't think it's an air thing. I'll say this. I think he makes some points about the deep balls, right? But I don't think it's necessarily that he doesn't have the strength to cut through the air. Like just because he played the Houston Texans, they didn't play every game in Houston, right? And he was still very effective, right? So he's been in the elements before, not the elements like snow and rain, but like he's thrown in other stadiums deep balls just fine before. I think it's just a matter of, is it still rust to a certain extent, right? Like anybody that was at camp for the most part says he was very accurate at camp, right? So getting that to translate to the field is what this is all about. The deep ball, it's been off by a lot, right? Like they haven't really been close on some of them. So, you know, I think you have to make a team respect it. So you have to throw it sometimes. And I think they want to hit these big explosive plays, but there's a path to getting there, right? And it doesn't just start with, you know, sending guys deep and thrown into double coverage to try to make a play like they kind of did against the Steelers, right, where the ball wasn't even close and Wallace almost intercepted it, right? Like, so, yes, I see the issues with his deep ball right now. It's not even really close, but I don't think it's a wind issue, Dave.
All right, before I let you go, some of the keys to this. How do they end up with a win? They need a win. You know, they missed an opportunity. There's only 2 teams in the AFC that are 2-0. 2 weeks into this. Those are the Dolphins and the Ravens. What do they need? What do they need to do to get to 2-1?
So I'll go to this real quick. Stefanski last week, and me and you have talked. I'm a big Stefanski supporter, so I don't want to be. This isn't like, you know, but I feel like he really missed on having a feel for the game on Monday night. Like, you know, the play that turned the game to the Steelers was a 2nd and 9 with about 7 minutes left in the game, and they went to a 7-step drop with no help with Jed Wills on the side, and he got strip sacked. It went untouched. Highsmith did, and strip sacked him, and they scoop and score. In that situation where the Steelers aren't moving the ball, the Browns haven't really moving the ball either. But there's about 100 other things they could have done there, Dave, that would have been safer than that play, right? And I think just having a feel and understanding, hey, my defense is not going to let them score right now. We could probably down it 3 times and punt it the rest of the game and get out of here with a dub. There is something to having that feel for that game. And I feel like he missed that. And he tried to get cute in his own end, and it cost him the game. He has to understand that. He has to understand the power of the defense that he has and playing complementary football that way. So I think that this could turn into another rock fight of a game if the Browns offense does struggle, which it could still, right? Like, I don't think these things get fixed overnight, Dave. So I hope that it looks a lot better. But if they do struggle, you can still win ugly against this Titans team. And I think Kevin he can't be afraid to win an ugly game. Like, let your defense win you the game, right? Like, if you have to. So that's kind of my thing. Like, if you really are struggling, and I hate to say it, I hope I'm wrong, but I anticipate them potentially having an issue because they're so good against the run and they haven't really figured out the pass game yet. I'm interested to see what version of an offense we get, Dave, but I hope I'm wrong. But if they do struggle, take what you can get the points you can get, play field position, lean on your defense. And if you have to do that for a couple weeks to stay around 500 until it clicks for Deshaun and this offense, then that's what you have to do. That's just kind of where I'm at.
Got to stop turning the ball over. You know, that's the other thing. If they have to win the turnover battle, and if they do that, they should beat the Titans. They're a better team.
100%.
Brad Ward, Orange and Brown Report, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Brad.
You're the man, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Brad Ward, make sure you check him out. Orange and Brown Report, also the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We'll hear more from the Titans on the Browns on the Titans. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Browns getting ready for that 1 o'clock meeting with the Tennessee Titans at Cleveland Browns Stadium. Greg Cosell from NFL Films on what he has seen with Deshaun Watson this year on tape. This is from the Colin Cowherd show, The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
The accuracy has really been a problem.
Yes.
He is just missing routine throws, and I think his mechanics have fallen apart. Lower body. And again, that's something you can work on. You and I don't know how he's being coached. We don't know the answer to that. But he is missing so many routine throws, Colin. I don't think he's struggling to understand where to throw the ball as much as he's missing routine throws. And as you and I both know, you cannot miss layups in this league. You just can't. And he is missing so many of those, and it's really limiting what they can do offensively.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It's mechanics, and I've said this by Josh Allen, by the way. sometimes even Mahomes occasionally gets off the rails a little bit, and now he doesn't. Yep. He hasn't in the last year, but a couple years ago he got off the rails, and it took Andy about 3 weeks to get his mechanics back.
That's exactly right. Playmaking quarterbacks, Colin, tend to have that issue at times because they know they can make special plays outside of structure. So when they get back to playing in structure, sometimes their mechanics fall apart just a little bit.
Again, Greg Cosell from NFL Films on what he has seen. Let's hope that's what it is, that they can get the mechanics back together. Browns offense desperately needs it and will need it more in the absence of Nick Chubb. Kevin Baird, Titans safety, has played against Watson from his time when he was with the Texans a couple of times a year. Here's what he's seen from Deshaun Watson.
He's running a different offense. I think, when he was in Houston, it was a lot of empty formations, a lot of spread out things. But I think he's still the same type of quarterback personally. I know the stats doesn't show it right now. Obviously, he missed a whole year of football, and I think he played just 6 games last week. So I think he's really still trying to, get it going to the level that he was before. But he's still an elite quarterback, in my opinion. We're going to have to really mix up and disguise our coverages because if we just line up and play just defense, he's going to pick us apart. So I just think that we got to force him to make some mistakes.
Well, the other thing that brings to question is how can you play to his strengths? So that's on the design. The offense, without Nick Chubb, and Jerome Ford's fine and Kareem Hunt's fine. They're not Nick Chubb. Don't expect them to be Nick Chubb. Your offensive line is missing Jack Conklin. You got to create the offense that can let Deshaun Watson be successful. On the other side of the field, it's going to be, the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, Mike Vrabel, a local guy. He went to high school at Walsh Jesuit, played at Ohio State. Has the reputation as being one of the better and among the best NFL head coaches. Jim Schwartz spent some time in Tennessee as an assistant head coach. This is what he thinks makes Vrabel an elite NFL head coach.
He's a former player, but that's not the whole story. He's very consistent in his message. He has a philosophy. He sticks through it. He doesn't waver when it comes to, the winds of the NFL, I guess you'd say. The wind starts blowing one way, he doesn't change direction and go another way. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. He's an excellent leader. He's a fantastic game manager. I learned a lot from Vrabes when it came to dealing with a team and, in game management. No matter how many years you've been in the league, this is 31 for me, there's always something that you can pick up and learn from somebody else.
And Vrabel has been really good in the game management realm for the Titans. All right. Former Brown swing tackle Chris Hubbard now a starting tackle for the Tennessee Titans. He talked about facing Myles Garrett this Sunday.
I practice against him every day, you know, so I know what to expect. I'm gonna let my guys know, you know, my teammates know, my O-line guys know what to expect and what I've learned from him, and watch him every single day in practice. So it's gonna be pretty fun.
How's he different than the guys you've seen so far?
He's explosive, man. He's quick off the ball, fast, very smart, and he's strong too. So he's agile. He has a lot of different intangibles that goes with him, and that he plays at a high level.
How often were you able to get that stuff in practice?
Sometimes, you know what I mean. Sometimes it's back and forth, you know, and that's the game, how games goes. And with him, he's gonna pick and choose when he's gonna take off and do his things as a player.
A little bit earlier in the show, we heard Myles Garrett talking about Derrick Henry, the big running back for the Tennessee Titans. Here's what Henry said about that Browns front.
They're fast flow, guys fly around, get to the ball real fast. Obviously, they're just disruptors with their pass rushers. With Myles Garrett, you know, him playing basketball and getting to the quarterback. But good linebackers. Got good cover guys. I think they're all around solid defense, and those are gonna be a tough task coming Sunday.
So the Titans' offensive coordinator is Tim Kelly. He's got Henry, you got Hopkins, you have Tajay Spears, Treylon Burks. Kelly talked about the challenges that the Browns' defense presents him.
They're fast. I mean, they're fast, attacking front. Those guys up front, obviously, you know, with Garrett and Zadarius, those guys are big, productive, strong, athletic players on the edge. Tomlinson's inside. They're getting out the ball. Those backers are flying all over the place, trying to take double teams off. So it's a very much of an attacking front, probably different than what we've seen the first couple of weeks with the Saints and with the Chargers. And then on the back end, they've got good length. Obviously with Newsome, Ward, guys that can run, that can play man coverage. Yeah, that's kind of what we're expecting to see.
With the high level of performance Cleveland has had through 2 weeks, how much attention to detail has been going into all the moving pieces on your offensive line for the last few days?
Yeah, you know, it's a good challenge for our guys up front. Our focus has been on making sure that we're putting them in a position to be successful. And you know, and everyone's going to have a piece of that. Like as we sit here and talk about it, making sure the guys that are giving the looks today when we're going out there in practice are giving us the specific looks that we're anticipating seeing. So the first time our guys up front feel that, it, you know, isn't on Sunday, because it is a different style from what we've seen so far.
And again, they alluded to it there. The Titans' offensive line a little banged up and beat up, so they do have some backups that are likely to play, and it will be a work in progress, so something the Browns can take advantage of. Jim Schwartz, Browns defensive coordinator, talked about his defensive front just creating problems.
I think you've seen the way teams have played us the first 2 weeks. They don't want to hold the ball very long, and you know, try to do a lot to combat what we do on defense. You know, so I'm sure they'll do the same thing. You know, they know who our players are. They know, you know, what they're capable of doing, so they'll have a plan. You know, but I think just like you saw on Monday night, you know, sort of like you go back to Cincinnati and we had Myles on the center and he got a flush and we got the sack, and came back last week and they had a different plan for it. And we had anticipated it, but they weren't going to leave Myles one-on-one in the center, so they doubled back, which left Sione free, and Sione was able to get the sack. And, you know, I think we have a lot of complementary parts that way that, you know, that we can use. And, you know, you devote too much attention to one guy, we have a lot of ways to, you know, sort of make you pay in another way. So D-line's very important to us.
So another question that has been asked pretty much all week of the Browns, morale of the team with Nick Chubb being done for the season. Myles Garrett asked about the morale of the team, as well as that defense that has yet to allow an opponent inside their 30-yard line through the first 2 games.
It feels good, but we got to keep it up. Got to set that as the standard. Nobody within the 30. Realistically, someone's going to break that. But as soon as they do, we got to show that mental toughness and resilience to be able to say, well, they don't get into the end zone, or they don't get past the 10 or the 20, whatever it is.
Miles, what do you think the mood is given the difficult loss Monday night and then, not having Nick Chubb?
Our spirits are high because we know we have on this team, and we know exactly the spirit of what we stand for and what Nick stands for, and how exactly he wants us to play. And he's still fully behind us and with us. And even though it's not physical right now, we've been able to talk to him and know how he feels, and he still has high hopes for all of us this season.
Browns 1-1 facing the 1-1 Titans. That's at 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We turn our attention to college football. Ohio State and Notre Dame will play tomorrow. Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter. Straight ahead, Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Sports4CLE continues. We turn our attention to college football. Battle of top 10 teams in South Bend as the 6th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes 3-0 travel to face the 9th-ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish 4-0. Let's welcome in Buckeyes beat reporter Stephen Means. Stephen, when you look at this, first-year starter at quarterback Kyle McCord, what have you seen as far as development goes? Week 1 against Indiana to where he sits now getting ready for the biggest game of his college career.
Yeah, Ryan Day talked about coming out of the Western Kentucky win, how Kyle McCord had his best week of practice going into that game. And I think part of that was Ryan Day officially naming him the starting quarterback, because you got to remember the Indiana and the Youngstown State games, while he did, yes, in fact, start, that is a fact, they were also rolling in Devin Brown as well. The quarterback battle did continue into the first 2 weeks of the season. So that Western Kentucky game was the first game where it was just Kyle McCord's team. And you saw how that played out and how the offense was a little bit more efficient. Now, also, Western Kentucky, they're not known for the defense. They're known for their offense. So that played a role as well as to why Ohio State scored 63 points at 2 drives where it was a 1-play touchdown. But it was a week of, as Ryan Day said, building momentum and putting their foot on the gas pedal a little bit more heading into this Notre Dame game where things do ratchet up a little bit more in terms of competition. And so this is a real opportunity for a lot of people to find out what Kyle McCord is as a starting quarterback. I mean, we've seen the last 3 starters go on to be Heisman Trophy finalists and first-round draft picks, and it starts in games like this and figuring out, can he reach that ceiling eventually, even if he's not necessarily completely there in week 4.
When you look at the running game, you also have 3. It's been a 3-headed monster. Do you expect that to continue, or do you expect Travion Henderson to kind of be eased in as the feature guy now?
The way they talked about Travion going back to Big Ten Media Days in Indianapolis, he's clearly the number 1 guy. And we thought coming into it that it was maybe a 1A, 1B situation with him and Mayan Williams, given what Mayan had done the year before that. But through 3 games here, Travion Henderson, 30 carries, Chip Trainum in this role of sometimes he's a fullback, sometimes he's a running back, but he's really just an athlete who can do a lot of different things for this offense. He's got 19 carries, and Mayan Williams has 18 carries, but a lot of Mayan's carries, especially in that Western Kentucky game, came in garbage time. So maybe Chip Trainum is making a play here to be a running back too. But I think through 3 games, Travion Henderson, 30 carries, they've really saved him. And they've had to, given off of what we saw last year where he got hurt early in the season and they never really got right after that. We saw how the running back room fell apart around him with Mayan Williams dealing with injuries. Chip Traynor was a running back going into last year, and they had to start him against Michigan. Dylan Hayden, who we haven't seen much of this year, ends up being the starting running back at times, especially in that Georgia game. So they got to figure out how to get a very deep room of running backs through the year. And if that meant only giving TreVeyon Henderson 10 times a game the first 3 weeks, and then you ratcheted him up to maybe 15 to 20 carries against a like-minded opponent, Notre Dame, I do expect that to be the case, to where this is the week we get to see full TreVeyon Henderson unleashed in a way that they just didn't need that to happen the first 3 weeks.
Do you expect the same for Marvin Harrison Jr.? I guess it's kind of unfair when a guy comes into to this season being the best wide receiver in college. You expect him to score a touchdown every time that he's on the field.
Yeah, I mean, they've gotten him involved. They've moved him around. You should expect to see him outside. You should expect to see him in the slot. They got him going early last week. And then obviously the Indiana game, Indiana sold out to make sure Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't the reason they beat him. The same way most teams will sell out to make sure he's not the reason. Then he got going against Youngstown State the week after that. And then the Western Kentucky game, he really got going. Expect him to be an impact player. He's been an impact player in every game when he's on the field. He and C.J. Stroud were the primary reason why Ohio State led at halftime against Georgia, and we saw how momentum shifted when he got knocked out of that game. We saw what he was able to do in the Penn State game last year. This is another chance for him to add. Marvin Harrison Jr. played well in a big game once again to his resume once again, but it's also about what can Emeka Egbuka do. Marvin Harrison Jr. is clearly wide receiver number 1 in the 2024 NFL draft. Emeka Egbuka might be the second best wide receiver in the country, and he's very much overlooked because he plays with Marvin. Can he have a breakout game? Can Julian Fleming have a breakout game? Kate Stover has been used more in the passing game. We talked about TreVeyon Henderson, how he's been used in the pass game in the past. Kyle McCord has an assortment of weapons, and all he has to do is find ways to get those guys in the ball. And he doesn't have to do anything special. Just get these weapons the ball, and they'll do special things for you.
When you look at the defensive side of the ball, what do you see? Is there? I think it's just 5 sacks against the 3 teams they've played, which have not been great opponents. Is that a concern?
I don't think it's a concern because 2 of the 3 teams they played didn't want to throw the ball. They wanted to play keep away and just run them. I get it. Indiana doesn't have offensive firepower to keep up. Youngstown State's a middle-of-the-road FCS team. I get it. You play keep away. I thought what we saw against Western Kentucky, who is a pass-happy team, yeah, they only walked away with 2 sacks, but Austin Reed, he felt that defensive line all game long. PFF, Pro Football Focus, put out their grades every single week. And I believe Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, who a lot of this is resting on as 2 former 5-star recruits who are supposed to be next in Larry Johnson's long line of NFL first-round draft picks here, they were the highest graded defensive ends in the country. So that shows you that when they play a team who's going to throw the ball around, those guys can make a quarterback feel them. I think Notre Dame maybe runs a more prototypical pro-style offense where we should be able to see that. But it is a big day for JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer going up against Joe Alt and Blake Fisher. Alt is a bona fide first-round NFL draft pick, and Fisher might be a high draft pick as well. JT Tuimoloau can go a long way and solidify himself as a potential first-rounder in the 2024, and Jack Sawyer can begin to do the same. But I think the guy on defense that's really intriguing for me is Denzel Burke. He started as a true freshman and kind of came out of nowhere, was a freshman All-American, had a really great year, and it felt like there was some promise there. And then he dealt with injuries all in 2022, so he kind of took a step back in his overall progression and his development. So far through 3 games, I think he has an argument for being the best player in Ohio State's defense with the way he's played at corner. He caused a fumble against Western Kentucky that led to a defensive touchdown, and against Youngstown State he had a pick. Can he continue progressing in this fashion that suggests that right now he's on his way to earning All-American status at the end of the year and maybe even being a first-rounder on his own. So it's good to see Denzel Burke playing at that level. But this defense is veteran. There's a lot of guys who have been playing football, meaningful snaps for 3 years now, and it seems like it's ready to really take off in a way that we haven't seen Ohio State's defense be elite since 2019.
When you look at the matchup with Ohio State and Notre Dame, what do you see as some of the keys? What areas do the Buckeyes have to take care of and win if they're going to come away with a much-needed win?
For the defense, it's what we've seen through 3 weeks. They've allowed 20 points. That's impressive. It doesn't matter who you're playing. If you're not giving up scores, that's impressive. If they can do that against a team who's actually college football playoff caliber, then we might come out of this game thinking Ohio State's the most complete team in college football. We thought that coming out of the Nebraska game in 2019 when they went into Nebraska and just laid a thumper on the Cornhuskers, and we were all like, okay, this is the most complete team in college football. Can they complete it and win a national title? Now, that didn't happen that season, but still, when you look at what that defense was and what you look at what that offense was, led by a first-year starting quarterback in Justin Fields and in J.K. Dobbins in year 3, who wanted to redeem himself after a not-so-good sophomore season, that was the most complete team in college football. I think this Ohio State team can do that exact same thing. First-year starting quarterback who was a former 5-star in Kyle McCord, Travion Henderson trying to bounce back from a not-so-good sophomore season, and a defense that's got enough names on it that I think that they can go into Notre Dame and really make a statement for what the rest of the season is going to look like when they get back from the bye week.
What would a win mean for Ohio State or Notre Dame? How important is this game when you think it's week 4 or week 5 for Notre Dame? It would be, I guess.
Yeah, I think the season starts for Ohio State on Saturday. The first 3 games were college football's version of what preseason were. You could show some stuff, but you really didn't have to go full throttle because the threat of losing was never really out there, so you could figure some things out. You could figure your quarterback situation out. You could work the kinks out with that offensive line that there's still some questions about, especially in the run game. You could start to really put things together defensively. But this Notre Dame game is the first real game of the year, and it can set a tone for when you do go get Penn State and Columbus in a couple of weeks, when you do have to head up to Ann Arbor at the end of the season and play Michigan. So for Ohio State, it's about setting a tone for a team who's trying to compete for a national title. While for Notre Dame, this is about Marcus Freeman, a former Buckeye, who his first real game as Notre Dame's head coach last year was against Ohio State, a top 5 matchup, primetime in Ohio Stadium. It didn't go his way. He's still looking for that early signature win as Notre Dame's head coach, and really his first time as head coach, period. And a win over Ohio State at home with the world watching, that's a playoff building resume win. But it also, gets the ball rolling on the Marcus Freeman era at Notre Dame because he's still looking for that one signature win that can help allow that program to take that next step.
Before I let you go, what are areas that the Buckeyes want to avoid? In other words, how does Notre Dame end up beating Ohio State in South Bend?
If the run game is a problem and you have to become one-dimensional, that's not a good thing. I don't think it's a terrible thing because then you're telling Kyle McCord, hey, can you throw the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr., Julian Fleming, and Emeka Egbuka and Cade Stover? It's the lesser of 2 evils in that situation, but still, they want to be balanced. You don't want to be a one-dimensional team and allow this defensive line for Notre Dame, which isn't as good as last year. They lost Isaiah Foskey to the NFL, but they still got some quality guys. You don't want to force Kyle McCord to have to be perfect. I brought up the Oregon game on our own podcast, Buckeye Talking, and writing and everywhere else. During that Oregon game, C.J. Stroud was pretty decent, but he wasn't perfect. And because everything around him wasn't as good as it needed to be, him not being perfect cost Ohio State a win. If Kyle McCord has to be perfect in his 4th game, it's really his 5th game because he started against Akron, but his 4th game as the official Ohio State starter in 2023, that's not good. That's not good. The defense has to hold up its end of the bargain. The run game has to hold up its end of the bargain. The weapons around Kyle McCord have to hold up their end of the bargain. The play callers, Ryan Day and Jim Knowles, have to hold up their end of the bargain. If all those guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and Kyle McCord just has to take what's given to him, take the open man, just be a really good quarterback, that's how Ohio State wins on Saturday.
Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, as always. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Stephen.
Thanks for having me.
Stephen Means, make sure you check him out. He'll have game coverage from Ohio State and Notre Dame. That will be tomorrow night. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you Monday on Sports4CLE. Remember, Buckeyes, Notre Dame tomorrow, Browns, Titans on Sunday. Have a great weekend. See you Monday at 4.